Drink it in, man.
Deep left side carry on. Picks on the block. At the 5. At the 2. At the 1 to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Drink it in, man.
Get up, Stafford throws. It is end zone. Caught! Oh, baby, what a catch! Kenny Galladay, you're a freak! What a catch! Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Cornbread! I love the Lions! Say it with me! I love the Lions!
Drink it in, man.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Detroit Koolaid Cast. Once again, this is Griff coming at you this Friday. It's another hectic week for me and Derek, so we're running solo this week. Once again, though, it is Friday, so let's start off with the weather report. As last weekend, we had that huge snowstorm and it got cold, just like I predicted. But then, this weekend coming up, it's back to the high 30s, low 40s again. Gosh, man, this temperature changes. It just always messes with my sinuses and gets me up and down. So I'll try to make sure I'm full of energy for you guys today. But once again, as always, it is wintertime out here in the Midwest. And I know it's nicer in the South if you listen to us, out in the West Coast if you listen to us. But please, always be safe out there when you're out there driving. The first thing I really want to touch on is once again one of the former Lions greats. I know some people like to kind of poke at me. I know Derek does because I kind of always bring up the old names. But Alex Karras, former defensive tackle for the Detroit Lions, has finally made the Hall of Fame class of this year. I realize it was that part of that special vote for the Centennial, the Centennial vote by those guys, but still, it's well deserved. I know my age, I've never seen the guy play. And this is where some people get on me. It's like, well, how do you know he was good? I saw enough of his highlights. And, I know, Derek, you can get the bell out. Yeah, I did look at his stats. And this is before they really kept, like, sacks and pressures and, quarterback hits and, all that stuff. So, you just have your basic tackles and interceptions, stuff like that when he played. But this guy, he was well-deserved. I mean, he was part of the original Fearsome Foursome. I know a lot of people hear about the Fearsome Foursome that was out in the LA Rams. That included Merlin Olsen, Deacon Jones. But this guy was, part of the Detroit Lions Fearsome Foursome. The original Silver Rush. Him, Roger Brown, a couple other guys. They used to wreak havoc on, like, those old guys from the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, the Chicago Bears. I mean, those defenses that Alex Karras was a part of, those are really great defenses. But let me just, give you a couple things about Alex Karras and why I liked him, other than that he was, Mongo in Blazing Saddles, one of my favorite movies, because, Mongo is just a Mongo, just pawn in life. And, he punched out a horse and, he did like Candy. Candy ran from Mongo. So if you've never seen Blazing Saddles, go check it out. One of the funniest movies of all time. But anyways, I mean, Alex Karras, he was the first-round draft pick, out of Iowa for the Detroit Lions. And, that was in 1958, and he was like the number 10 pick that year. And he's a 4-time Pro Bowler for him. He was three-time All-Pro first team, 6-time All-Pro second team. He was also part of the 1960s Team of the Decade, and it was one of those things where I always wondered, like, he was like the only defensive lineman on the team that wasn't in the Hall of Fame at that time that made the Team of the Decade, and that was one of those things that really stuck in my craw, that really bugged me about it. And there was always this talk, going around, because if you don't realize it, at one point in his career, for the 1963 season, he was suspended for the year. Him and Paul Hornung, the Green Bay Packers, for gambling on football, and he sat out the whole year doing that, and then he was reinstated by Pete Rozelle next year. But even during the year off, he went and he did pro wrestling. I mean, so the guy was athletic enough. He went and did pro wrestling, and just to stay in shape. And he came back to football the next year. One of the big things, like, where, once again, I always say the Packers get the calls. I mean, Paul Hornung, don't get me wrong, I've seen plenty of video of Paul Hornung. I realize he's won Super Bowl championships, where Alex Karras didn't with the Lions. But Paul Hornung's part of the Green Bay Packers. once again, the trophy's named after their former coach, so naturally Paul Hornung's been in the Hall of Fame for years. So once again, that seemed to be schmoozed over a little bit, even though it kind of stuck with Alex Karras a little more. It was also a little bit that he was generally known to be a nice guy, but he wasn't a huge fan of the media. That could be another thing that kind of cost him there as well, that why he didn't get voted in. He was could be a little surly at times, but a lot of people liked him, and he was an all-around nice guy. One of the funniest things that I ever heard the story, and I know you can go look this up, was after he came back. The year he came back, he was out, pregame out for a coin toss, and the referee looked at him and said, asked him to, if he would, make the call, heads or tails, and he retorted, he's like, "Sorry, sir, I'm not permitted to gamble." And it's like, I can't imagine what the look on the ref's face was at the time when a player actually came back and said that. But I mean, it's kind of ballsy to go out there and say that. It's like, no, I can't call a coin flip because Pete Rozelle said I can't play football if I gamble, and this is gambling, heads or tails. So I always thought that was a funny story. I always heard about him, and it always made me laugh. He was one of those guys, like when I would watch Lions games when I was a kid with my dad. My dad would always bring him up because my dad saw him play, and he's like, he was great, especially when, I don't know if you ever saw the TV show Webster from the 80s. That's where my dad told me. I was watching that show when I was a kid, and he's like, yeah, he used to play for the Lions. I'm like, what? And he started telling me about him, how great he was, what type of player, how he was, one of the best defensive linemen he ever saw. So, it's one of those things I share with my dad, that where it really gets me into looking at older guys. I know we all kind of like live in the moment, who's great now, but sometimes you got to look back and see where teams got, who was on the team, how they got there, the greats of those old guys, and kind of revere them. And Alex Karras is one of those guys I always did revere. I know I said this on a show before, but I brought the book Paper Lion, and where George Plimpton was trying out with the Lions at that time. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but it was the year after he tried out. He saw the team again in Philadelphia, if I'm remembering the story correctly, and a bunch of guys were hanging out in the hotel room before going to the stadium. And when he walked in, and everybody was jovial, having a good time, Alex Karras was in there. And at one point while he was in there hanging out with the guys, George Plimpton kind of noticed that Alex Karras really started to kind of get a little surly, and at one point he just kind of, I don't want to say made a snide comment, but his attitude changed. He got mad, and he ended up leaving the room. And George Plimpton looked around and said, did I do something? Did I make him mad? And they're like, nope, he's just getting ready for the game. That's how he does it. And that always kind of stuck with me too. And I know there's plenty of guys like that too. You always hear when they put the helmet on, they're different guys. So that's one of those things where he's kind of cut from that same cloth like that. So I've said it before a million times. I always thought this guy belonged in. I always thought he was cheated, and I know the biggest thing was that he was getting stuck, for the gambling thing, is what I always thought when reading up on him. But once again, former great. Hats off to Alex Karras. I mean, too bad he passed away in 2012, so he's not going to be able to see this. But he's one of the key Lions, from 1958 to 1970. So if you feel like it, go back, look up some of his old videos and see actually how dominant he was. He was part of that defensive line that actually was, I believe, sacked Bart Starr like 8 or 9 times on a Thanksgiving Day game, and the Lions crushed him that game at Old Tiger Stadium. But finally, it's well deserved that Alex Karras finally made the Hall of Fame. And like I said, just too bad he won't be around to not see it and make a speech there. I mean, I'm sure his surviving family members will do a wonderful job doing that. Before I get into the rest of the show here, let's take a pause for the cause, and everybody, once again, appreciate taking care of our sponsors. So we'll be back in 1 second.
This episode is brought to you by PwC. When unprecedented times are all the time, it's time to start walking the talk. Leaders like you turn to PwC to see and stay ahead. Upskill your workforce, use intelligent automation, and transform big ideas into breakthrough reinvention. Explore the human-led, tech-powered solutions that help you reinvent. It's all part of the new equation. Learn more at pwc.com.
Hey, once again, we're back. I know I missed it before after doing the weather report, but once again, TGIF. Sorry, everybody. I know you guys were expecting that. Thank God it is Friday. It's going to be another weekend here, and another weekend closer to the draft, another weekend closer to mini camps and training camps, so I know we're all looking forward to that, all being Lions fans, seeing how this team's going to change. But let's do this. I know we're going to talk, a lot about was it the draft, and I know Derek does a lot of work on that. I know he puts a lot of time into that. And I know on a show last week we talked about filling the spots either with free agents or if you would look to do that in the draft. But what I'm going to do is, I know Derek's going to handle the draft, and I know we're going to talk about this later, but what I want to do is just bring up some potential free agents that could be landing spot, could be landing here with Detroit, or just talk about some guys. It just seems like, free agency's been around since I want to say since I was a kid, but, I believe I was a young teen when free agency started. I can't remember the exact year it happened, but I remember the old days where Wayne Fonts was bringing in, I remember they were showing highlights of him at, Pistons games sitting there with Reggie White and, like, Derek Thomas, and, everybody kind of figured that Derek Thomas was going to re-sign with Kansas City, but, Reggie White was out there. He wasn't re-signing with Philadelphia, and everybody kind of thought, Detroit was a potential landing spot, for this big-time free agent, game-changer, Reggie White. And everybody knows the story about Reggie White. He went to sleep one night and God told him, here, go to Green Bay. But it seems like, even since then, I mean, if the Lions were to land a free agent, like a big name, they always kind of had to overpay for him. I mean, they had to do it like Dre Bly. And even with like Trey Flowers, I mean, some people, after the year he had last year, were saying, we really overpaid for that guy. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not mistaking Reggie White, Trey Flowers for Reggie White by any stretch of the imagination. But Trey Flowers did come on later in the year, but still, he's nowhere near Reggie White. We got Kennard a few years ago. Nobody's going to mistake that guy for Lawrence Taylor. And it just seems like, I don't know if the Lions just don't want to pay or the Lions just have that, that stigma where big-time free agents, big-name free agents don't want to come here because it's the Detroit Lions. But I get that feeling sometimes, and it just seems like we really need to overpay guys that, if they went somewhere else, they would, get a reasonable paycheck. But for them to come here in Detroit, they have to kind of overpay. And I know Derek might hear this and say, "Well, that's loser talk, that same old Lions talk." But face it, man, look back at it. It's just it's history. It's recent history even. So I mean, the same thing. Like they got Justin Coleman last year, PFF's #1 rated slot corner, and even me and Derek were debating at times did he have the type of year that really justified the contract that he got? So I'm going to do this. I'm going to cover some potential free agents and just give you just a real thumbnail at it really quick, and what we think of, what I think about them. I'll dive deeper into these guys later with Derek. I know we'll bring up these names later, but these are just some potential free agents. I know that we can talk about and go from there. But let's start with, I guess, you always kind of work inside out. Let's start with like the defensive line. I know there was always a rumor going out that Detroit was ready to make Chris Jones the highest, give him a nice big fat contract. Now, Chris Jones is a defensive lineman out of Kansas City. I'm sure you all know that. Age, he's not old at all. I mean, he's 26 years old. He's had a good year. I mean, last few years he's been rated in the top 8 at his position. Chris Jones, I don't know if he's going to come here. I think the only way that he's going to come here is if they give him a nice big contract, big fat contract, and some people might think it's overpaid. And I know last year when the Lions signed Trey Flowers, we're all happy with that. And some were like, well, you overpaid for him. And, this might be the same thing that we have to do to get Chris Jones here. But I know at one point Kansas City has a lot of young talent there. They might have to let Chris Jones walk this year. But yes, if the Lions paid and got Chris Jones here, I would love that. Another guy here I listed as Eric Armstead. He's also 26 years old. He's on San Francisco. He took a really big step forward this year. He might be a guy the Lions might look to sign a little more than, say, Chris Jones, simply with his versatility. He can be deemed one of those defensive linemen who's a little smaller or at the edge. And we all know that Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia, they like guys who are versatile. But Eric Armstead, they might look at him and be more apt to sign him than Chris Jones, and Chris Jones is just a straight defensive tackle, and depending on what the Lions look to do in the draft. But Eric Armstead, he's played really well the last couple of years, but this year I think he was a little better than he has been in the past. So he might get a bigger payday that way. He is another guy I would not be sorry if the Lions were able to sign him. And once again, I think with his versatility, the Lions might look at that a little more than, say, Chris Jones. Staying on the defensive side of the ball, let's go back to the next level. Let's go to the linebackers, and I know we all kind of wonder about linebackers here. We all, I think, was it Davis? I don't think he's that great. He's not that great. He's fast, but he misses tackles. Jalan Tavai, he gets a lot of tackles, but he's slow. He can't cover. Christian Jones, according to PFF, he's one of the top-rated linebackers during the, defensing against the run, but that guy couldn't cover a coffee table. And Kennard, I like Kennard. He might be a little slower, but he does get to the quarterback at times as well. I think we need some better linebackers myself. And first one that comes to mind is it's Corey Littleton. He's a linebacker for the LA Rams. He's also 26 years old. What I really like about Corey Littleton is he does what a lot of our linebackers struggle with, and that's cover the running backs and tight ends. That's one thing that he is noted for that he can do. And especially with the type of offenses that the Lions face here in the NFC North, Green Bay likes to use the tight ends, hit Aaron Jones out of the backfield. The Bears, I know Matt Forte always used to, burn the Lions with that little wheel route, and they haven't seemed to do that nearly as much the last couple of years. I just think it's talent-wise and offensive-wise, but they do have a new offensive coordinator going in there this year. In Minnesota, that's the same thing. We all seen what Minnesota did with Kyle Rudolph, Irv Smith, Dalvin Cook out of the backfield as well. I think he could really help. Now, the knock on Corey Littleton is that, as far as good as he is at covering the running backs and tight ends out of the backfield, he's not that great against the run. And once again, when the weather turns bad in some of those outside stadiums, everybody's looking to pound the rock, run the ball. So, for what he's good at, he's not as good at covering, once again, run defense, and we already kind of have a Jared Davis on that. But I like Corey Littleton simply because for what we really struggled with as a team last year at with our linebackers covering tight ends and running backs, that is something he can do. And the other one that always comes to mind that everybody kind of jokes about, that's Kyle Van Noy. I mean, everybody knows Kyle Van Noy. When we drafted him, everybody was kind of happy. It's like, hey, we got this. And then, I don't know if everybody heard the story that, one of the Lions coaches was, on the defense, was like, we just don't know really what to do with you. And that's just like, really? I mean, how can you tell a draft pick, like, we took you, but we don't know exactly what to do with you? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He was traded off to New England, and under Matt Pat, you really found his legs. And, they knew what to do with him. They schemed him correctly. I would take Kyle Van Noy back simply because he's worked with Matt Pat, and Matt Pat knows how to use him. And I know the Lions just, just signed a new defense coordinator, but we all know it's Matt Pat's scheme, and we all know he'll be doing most of the calling of the defense. Kyle Van Noy, he is 28 years old. I mean, that's not old by any stretch of the imagination, but he is a guy I wouldn't mind seeing at all if they brought him back. Now, once again, if he liked it here and he would do it, I don't know if it's got to be a guy that you would really have to pay him to get back here or not. I don't know if the open market for Kyle Van Noy is that, demanding where people are breaking down his doors. Once again, he seems like more like a scheme guy. He needs to be in the right scheme for him to be successful, and that's what the Patriots were able to do. And if Matt Pat runs the same defensive scheme here, that's what I'd like to see him do as well. Let's go out to the edge here. Here's a couple guys. Everybody's going to say the first one, let's go get Jadeveon Clowney. Everybody knows Clowney. His most famous hit is the one against Michigan in that bowl game where he took off the running back's helmet. That's what he's really known for. He's 26 years old. This guy's going to be big money, and he's looking to sign with a contender. I mean, we all seen his quote or heard his quote, that he's looking to, get championships rings. He doesn't want to go to a team that's, doesn't stand a chance. That's one, but still, you're going to have to pay the guy. It just seems like he's that type of guy. He's not going to give anybody a hometown discount at the age of 26. It's like, well, the Packers are a contender. The Chiefs are a contender. The 49ers are a contender. Yeah, I'll take a little less to go pay there with your guys. He's 26 years old. He has this contract, and then he's got, probably one more contract, after that, depending on how long he signs for this one. That last one will be like, if I don't have a ring, I still have something in the tank. Sign me now, and then I'll go get my ring. This is a big money contract, what he's looking for. Yeah, he wants a team that, is there on the cusp to give him a lot of money. I can put you over the top. I'm 26 years old. That's what I'm telling everybody. So all you teams that, I think don't stand a chance, don't bother calling me. So yeah, I don't think he's coming in here at all. So I'm not sad to say that either. The next guy is Shaquille Barrett. And I know a lot of people are typed about Shaquille Barrett. He had a great year down in Tampa Bay. He started out in Denver before signing with Tampa Bay, and he was a backup in Denver. And we all saw what type of talent, Von Miller was out there. And so, yeah, we all know the type of talent Denver had out there, why he was a backup. Shaquille Barrett's 27 years old, and I see a lot of people calling for this guy. It's like, oh, look at his numbers. Look what he did down in Tampa Bay. Yeah, the guy started out as a house of fire. He did. We had, 7 sacks in 6 games or something like that, or 8 sacks in 7 games. I can't remember off the top of my head. But then it was one of those things where teams were really figuring out how do we, kind of, I don't want to say bottle this guy up, but stop him. I know he still had a lot of pressures. And I know that's one thing me and Derek talked about back and forth, pressures, I call it an almost stat. But Shaquille Barrett's one of those guys I would stay away from. I think he was I think he was a one-year wonder. I've said it before, if you were that great, how come you were always constantly a backup? So Tampa Bay signed him for a little bit of money, and they schemed him correctly. But Shaquille Barrett, I know some people calling for him, but not me. I would stay away from this guy. Edge, I would look for more in the draft or maybe somebody else, and I know we'll dig deeper later on that. So, but that's what I would do between those two edge guys. Clowney's not coming here, and I'd stay away from Shaquille Barrett. I know we often talk about cornerback and needing somebody to start opposite of Slay. First one I'd like to touch base on is Byron Jones. He's cornerback on in Dallas, and he really had a bounce back year for him. He's 27 years old. I think he's pretty good in coverage. I know I've talked to a few other people that think he's not that great, but 27 years old. He's played in the big games. He's played under with he obviously plays for he played for the Cowboys, so he's used to having the spotlight on him. So he knows what it's like to have to play on the big stage. But he's another one of those guys that I think he's going to demand big money, and somebody's going to give him a nice fat contract. And I don't know if the Lions are willing to do that based on who else is out there at cornerback and who's here on the team. A.O. really seemed to come on later in the year and do really, really well. So he could be a guy the Lions might be like, okay, we're going to go with what's in house. Also, since the Lions just gave Justin Coleman a big contract last year, I don't know if they'd be really interested in giving another guy a really big contract in the defensive backfield. That could leave your money thin for other positions of need on this team. And let's face it, there's a lot of spots that are needed on this team. The other one, I know Derek has talked about this guy, and I've talked about him as well, and that's Chris Harris. He's the cornerback out of Denver that the Lions made a play for last year during the trade deadline, but nothing was able to come about with a trade with him. Chris Harris is 31 years old, so he's getting a little long in the tooth. And I know some people, 31's not old. Well, 31's old in football, and everybody knows that. He might be a guy. He didn't have that great a year for Denver playing on the outside. He was generally known more for the slot. He was really good in slot and at the slot in zone and man coverage. So if they were to sign him, I don't think he would be that expensive. I mean, I think he'd also be really good in the defensive backfield with Slay. One thing, like I said, just worried about is how his play seemed to go down a little bit, being on the outside as opposed to the slot. And unless they're planning on moving Justin Coleman to the outside and putting Chris Harris back at the slot, I don't know if they'd be willing to do that. But Chris Harris, I mean, I'd be happy if he came here. I just think that I would really watch how much you pay him. I don't believe he's going to demand a huge contract, he might demand a huge contract. I don't think he's going to get it, simply for what he did last year and his age as a defensive back. So he's another guy I wouldn't be mad if the Lions were able to sign him for a decent price. I'm just going to touch on one safety, and that's Anthony Harris. He's out of Minnesota. He's 28 years old. he seemed to be that Minnesota defense. They were a really well-rounded group. They had some, they had some really good players. I don't know if you want to call any of them like really superstars, but they had a lot of good talent on that team. And Anthony Harris is one of those guys. I believe he's one of those guys that maybe gets overshadowed a little bit by Harrison Smith. I said it before, like Harrison Smith, when he came out of Notre Dame, I wish the Lions would have took him. But Harrison Smith does seem to make plays, but Anthony Harris makes some plays as well. More of a free safety than a strong safety, and he's a real sure tackler, and that's that's good for a safety. Being the last line of defense. He could be a guy that could help. Once again, the young guys back there. I know we talked about this. Walker, Harris. Those guys, kind of putting those guys underneath your wing. Playing with those guys. Once again, showing them, learning the ropes. And I like Anthony Harris. I don't know if the Lions will make a play for him. I mean, honestly, I would just stay with Tavon. Re-sign him. And bring him back, as opposed to getting another safety out there. That's what I would look to do. I mean, that's just me, though. I'm the armchair GM on this. Other positions that the Lions need, I would go with the offensive line. I have a few guys I want to talk about here, more so than, everybody knows. Well, I think Amari Cooper's out there. He's, I don't think the Lions are going to look to sign Amari Cooper, considering they already have Marvin, they already have Kenny. They're not going to give a big contract to a guy who plays the exact same positions as those two guys. If they were looking for a wide receiver, like we talked about it, and I know Derek mentioned it, just re-signed Danny Amendola. He had a good year for the Lions. It was one of the years he was, stayed healthy the whole year, which is nice, and I think he's got the quicks to do that. He would be the wide receiver. I wouldn't mind them re-signing over the wide receivers that are out there. So, I'm sorry. I like Cooper. I think he's good. He was one of those guys. I told Derek a while ago I would take him over Odell Beckham Jr., and I still would. But I don't see him signing them. Same thing with A.J. Green out of Cincinnati. I can't see him signing A.J. Green either. And A.J. Green's another guy I really, really like. But based on who's here already for the Lions, I can't see them throwing a lot of money his way either. The Lions still need a backup quarterback as well. There's plenty of guys out there, and I don't want to touch really on any backup quarterbacks. Or they're going to get somebody over Blau and Driscoll, so I just don't know who. I mean, just make it somebody who's been around the league for a little bit, kind of knows the ropes, can if something drastic was to happen to Stafford mid-game, that you can come in and step in, and the lights aren't too bright, and your eyes aren't as the size of saucers. So I'm not even worried about backup quarterback. But I do want to touch on the offensive line. It's one spot it seems like the Lions, we've talked about it, seem to have struggled. They still have Taylor Decker over there. Everybody knows how I feel about Taylor Decker. Derek laughs at me, says he's going to punch me out next time he sees me at training camp. But, okay. Yeah, I mean, once again, I'll give him the stinky leg drop, and I'll just go right around him. Not too worried about that. But the other tackle, Rick Wagner, is over there, and there is a chance that he could be a cap casualty based on what he's making and how he's played the last couple of years. And some people will tell you, well, PFF says he's a really good run blocker, and PFF, it's one of those things. I said it before, second, I don't see it. I think he's completely average for the amount of money that guy makes. So a couple tackles that are out there. I mean, once again, we could look at them. One is Anthony Costanzo out of Indianapolis. He's a little older. He is 32 years old. If you want to cut Wagner, pay a guy a little less. I think Costanzo might be that guy, being that he is 32 years old. He's a good pass blocker, and I realize there's points where this team wants to be more balanced, run the ball, pass the ball. So you want a guy who's really good at both. But face it, he's not that great against the run. He's better at pass blocking, and still, there's points it seems like the Lions do still need to pass the ball a lot. I still think they need to depend on Matt Stafford's arm to win a lot of games, or at least get them up in games where, in the fourth quarter where they have a lead, they can go to that 4-minute offense, and then grind it out at that point. But if the Lions are looking to drive the ball down the field, that's one thing you're going to have to do is keep guys off Matt Stafford, and since Anthony Costanzo is good at pass blocking. 32 years old, if you're looking to move on Rick Wagner, if you don't think Crosby's the answer, it might be a guy, give him a couple years, not a huge contract, but I don't know if he'll sign here or if the Lions are even interested. He may be a guy that goes back to Indianapolis, considering Indianapolis is also looking for a quarterback. They might move on from Jacoby Brissett. At least that's what it sounds like. So, but he's a tackle who's out there. Another one is Jack Conklin out of Tennessee. And I know we've all been watching the playoffs, and we've all seen Derrick Henry, who's a free agent running back, by the way. I don't want to touch on Derrick Henry, but Jack Conklin. I know at one point I was texting my buddies, and I'm just like, gosh, when are the Lions going to get an offensive line like Tennessee? Those guys were just busting open up holes, and Jack Conklin's one of those guys. Jack Conklin is really good as a run blocker, and it might be one of those guys, if you're really focusing on the run, he might be the guy that you want to get. He's only 25 years old. He's been one of the better run blockers since he came into the league. I'd like him, but his downfall is that he's not good. He's not that great one-on-one as a pass blocker. He's the guy that tends to need a little more help, either a chip from the running back, or he needs the tight end to stay in and help him out. So once again, it depends on what you're looking to do. If you're looking to drive the ball down the field a lot more, ride the arm of Matt Stafford, then Jack Conklin might not be the guy that you're looking for. But if you're looking to pound the ball all the time, run the ball, he might be the guy that you're looking for. And it's once again, it's him being 25 years old. I think he might demand a little more, because it seems like age, and he is a good tackle. He might get a little more money than what the Lions are actually looking to spend on that. So, but still, Jack Conklin's one of those guys. If the Lions were to sign him for a good price, I would not be sad. As for guards, I know Glasgow's a free agent. It sounds like he's going to really test the market. He might price himself out of the Detroit Lions payroll. So a couple guys that are sitting out there. One guy everybody was like, one guy that a lot of people were calling for last year. It's like, hey, see if you can trade for this guy, and that's Brandon Sheriff, the guard out of Washington. Now, Brandon Sheriff, he's 28 years old. He's been around for a little bit. Once again, 28 years old, not really old, but it is getting up there. Especially over the last few years, he has been a little more injury prone. Before that, he was probably one of the best guards in the league, but it just seems like the last 3 years he really can't stay on the field. He's been injured a lot lately, but he has developed into one of those guards that is really good with the blocking the run and pass blocking, especially those big interior defensive linemen. He has developed into one of those guys, but he might be a guy. I don't want to say you can get him cheap, because I think some teams always look past that. They always look past the injury. They look at what he's developed into, what he is, and he's a good guard. He is, but he has been injury prone the last 3 years. But still, I think a team might look to overpay him. I think if the Lions could get him in here for a decent price, sure. I'm not looking to overpay a guy who can't stay on the field the last 3 years. I know me and Derek have always joked about this, guys that can't stay on the field, and he'll bring up like his measurables and like what he's done, but I'm like, yeah, that's great, but he can't stay on the field. So it doesn't matter. Then you're not doing anything with him if you're paying a guy for sitting on the sideline while he's injured. Once again, if Brandon Sheriff could stay healthy, I would be really, really happy. But this might be a guy, if you got him at a decent price, okay, bring him in. Let's give him a chance. Other than that, if you're looking to pay the guy big money, I wouldn't do that, simply because, like I said, his history of him being injured. And the last guy I want to talk about, another guy that people always talk about simply because he has ties to Matt Patricia, and that's Joe Thuney, the offensive guard out of New England. It's funny, everybody thinks that since the guy's on New England, it's like, oh, he knows him, he played on New England. Yeah, they know him, but they're not sitting in the same meeting rooms. One guy was a defensive guy, the other guy was on the offensive side. Yeah, sure, they saw each other on the field and the hallways and stuff like that, but just because they were on the same team, one as a coach and one as a player, when they're on opposite sides of the ball. He's one of those guys, Thuney, I wouldn't mind him. Once again, he's good all around. He's 27 years old, so he's not, once again, he's not that old. He's another guy that's really developed well into handling the bigger guys on the inside. I'd have to say he's probably one of the better offensive linemen that was on that New England team. And once again, based on keeping Tom Brady upright, he was one of those guys, especially keeping the rush off him from the inside. He's another one of those guys, though. If you're looking to break the bank for him, I wouldn't look to do that. I'm not a guy that really likes to break the bank for an interior offensive lineman. That's me. I mean, so some other people might feel the same way, but other people might feel it's pay that guy whatever he wants to get him in here, But that's not me. I mean, once again, he's another one of those guys. If the Lions were able to get him at a decent price, bring him on in here. He can only help out, especially if you're going to let Glasgow go. If you're okay with Joe Dahl at the other side, or if you're okay with Ibushi, or if you want to go with Dahl and Ibushi and not interested in a guard, I guess so be it. But I think you're really not helping yourself out if you're leaving yourself with those two guys. So Brandon Scherff, Joe Thuney, the last couple guys that. Guards, and once again, if the Lions got him for a decent price, I wouldn't be sad, to bring them in to get him here on the offensive line. I think those guys are both to be upgrades over Ibushi and Joe Dahl. Once again, that's just me, though. Once again, I know there's a whole lot of other spots, a whole lot of other free agents out there that we'll talk about coming up. Once again, I just wanted to give you a thumbnail about some guys that I'd seen that I've been hearing. Read stuff on. The other people bring this guy in. Why don't we look at this guy? Bring this guy. So these are some of the names. A lot of them that I'm hearing a lot of other Lions fans, say, hey, why don't we go get this guy? So I know me and Derek will cover a lot more of these, and we'll go a lot more in depth on these players as the free agency period comes up. And once again, we all know it's after the Super Bowl. I just wanted to give you a quick thumbnail, my opinion on them. So that's really all I have for today. I know me and Derek are looking to get back together next week, and I'm sure we'll have an entertaining show for you. I hope you enjoyed listening to me. Once again, everybody, I want you to go Lions and drink it in, man. Everybody, once again, be safe out there this weekend, and I'm looking forward to the draft here coming up. Out.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions!
Drink it in, man.
Welcome everybody to the Detroit Koolaid Cast for here this Friday morning. This is Mike coming to you. Me and Derek once again, busy schedules, unable to hook up, so you get to listen to me this Friday. Once again, any state that has the daylight savings times, that is taking place this weekend, so you will lose an hour of sleep Saturday into Sunday. So don't stay out too late, because there's a chance you may miss church on Sunday morning, and that's not a good thing. But anyways, you know what I do here on Fridays? I give you the weather for the weekend. Of course, here in Michigan, it's supposed to be beautiful. This has been the hottest winter of all time, but I will take it. It's supposed to be 40s and almost mid-50s coming Sunday, so it can be as crappy as it wants during the week, but as long as this weekend rolls around, it's really nice. I'll be getting outside, maybe doing a little yard work, going for some walks, doing stuff like that. So once again, everybody, enjoy this weekend. Just a couple things I want to touch base on. Once again, I know we are covering the shows again. I will be covering the Washington game and the Thanksgiving Day game against the Bears. That'll come up after the break. But there's a couple things I want to touch base with first before we get into everything. Oops, I forgot. Once again, TGIF, everybody. Thank God it's Friday. First thing I want to touch base on was the rumor going around that the Washington Redskins, there's some scuttlebutt happening, that they may be looking to draft Tua. Once again, if he's there, if nobody trades up. Not for sure what Ron Rivera sees or does not see in Dwayne Haskins, considering the Redskins spent a first-round pick on him last year. But I did see an article, something to the effect of that Dwayne Haskins was having difficulty reading Ron Rivera's playbook. He's having such difficulty that Ron Rivera thought maybe he had dyslexia. Not for sure if he does or not, but I'm not for sure if Ron Rivera is comfortable with Dwayne Haskins, as his quarterback. Once again, everybody thought Chase Young would be penciled in as the number 2 pick automatically. I've heard a couple people say, well, they got Montez Sweat and Ryan Kerrigan. They don't need him. Kerrigan's been around for a while. He's getting a little long in the tooth. I mean, Montez Sweat was a rookie last year, so still, Chase Young has to be the guy right there that the Redskins have to be looking at. I believe part of this could be as just them trying to drum up a little bit of some rumors out there where people might be looking to actually, trade up to the number 2 pick. The Redskins do have a lot of holes, so they may be looking to, get a plethora of picks. It's one of those things, though, I can't understand it. You see a lot of people. I know Derek really, really likes Chase Young a lot. A lot of people are calling him a generational talent. He had better numbers at Ohio State than either one of the Bosa brothers. So, I mean, he seems just like the number 2 lock. It's still even one of those things I couldn't understand. If this guy's such a generational talent, and I realize Cincinnati needs a quarterback. I mean, if this guy's, really supposed to be that good, how come, Cincinnati wouldn't look at him at number 1 and they have Joe Burrow already penciled in? But I know a lot of Lions fans are liking the sounds of this, with the Redskins maybe looking to take another quarterback in the first round and going with Tua as opposed to Dwayne Haskins. Now, Ron Rivera's not one of those coaches that, that's, been a long-time coordinator. He's been around the block. He's coached, obviously a head coach for a while, so he does have some cachet to say, like, I want to draft this guy. I don't like who's here. So if he wants to go with Tua, having Chase Young fall to the Lions, I know a lot of Lions fans would be happy with that. I know me and Derek will probably discuss Chase Young a little bit, at some other point. But Chase Young, I mean, I know the Lions do need some pass rush ability, and they need to, be able to get to the quarterback, get quarterbacks uncomfortable in the pocket. And Chase Young on the other end of the line, with Trey Flowers on one end, would definitely help do that. So, either way, I think the scuttlebutt about the Redskins taking Tua, I think that's just a smokescreen. Maybe thinking Miami or Oakland willing to give up a bunch of picks to trade up to the number 2 spot. In that way, the Redskins would be able to fill some more holes. But if that was to happen, I mean, once again, Chase Young falling the Lions isn't really that bad of a thing. So. Another thing I want to touch base on, I was watching video on Matt Patricia. He joined the Good Morning Football crew as they were in Indianapolis for the combine that took place. Talked to Mr. Schrager there. I know one of the things that he said was that he was very happy that Matt Stafford was the quarterback here in Detroit. He did state that actually Matt Stafford was one of the reasons why he came to Detroit, and he would like him to keep him as the quarterback on the team. I know there's always, me and Derek have talked about this, trade him, but once again, we believe that the cap hit would be too much, and I don't think the Lions are interested in doing that, considering everybody's come out and said that, Stafford's here, Stafford's going to be the quarterback. But along with Matt Patricia saying that he was happy with Stafford, I mean, he did have some other things I thought was a little bit of coach speak, happy with the way the direction the team's going. They're going to be better. It's going to be, pretty much, coach speak at this time of year for a team that's picking number 3. I do particularly like how Matt Patricia is one of those coaches that he never looks to throw his team under the bus. One thing I do wish at this point, I wish he'd kind of get rid of the pencil out from behind the ear. I think Derek's a fan of that. Me, I think it's starting to be a little one of those things just like, okay, it's a gimmicky thing, it might be time to get rid of that. But Matt Patricia, we all know he's a coach here. He's going to do what he wants. He's going to be he's the one calling the shots, and he's going to be the one helping Bob Quinn make the pick. And I do believe once again this team needs some defense. So I think they're looking at that side of the ball, but I mean, we never really know. I mean, something could come up. Lions could trade down, and they could be looking, at offense. That always happens as well. Anything can happen in the draft. That's what Derek always says. It's just as soon as you think you don't know, something happens, throws everything to a tizzy. So we're all looking forward to the draft and seeing what will happen to improve the Lions. Other than that, I'm going to take a quick break here so we can get a time for our sponsors. I really appreciate you guys taking time, in dealing with our sponsors. I know there's a few other people that have actually used Anchor and got their own podcast going. So here's a listen, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Once again, it's Friday, and I'm here by myself. This is Griff coming at you. Sorry, so there's no bells and no dings or anything like that. So, if I remember to do one on myself, I will look to do that. But what I'm going to do here is, once again, we're covering, recapping the season. So I got some pointers here on a couple of the games, and just to go back through them, just to remind everybody, what happened. We know the Lions had a tough season, but still, this is it's always nice to look back at the games and see, the good points, along with the bad. So once again, I'm covering the Washington game and the Bears game on Thanksgiving, so I'll start here with the Washington game. And this is one of those games that I know before the game when me and Derek previewed it. Even though the Lions had Driscoll at quarterback, the Redskins, they were not that great a team. They weren't having a good year. Haskins, rookie quarterback. He had a couple spots here and there in games, but mostly he looked like a rookie quarterback in any time that he had played. So we both felt good going into this game, even though the game was in Washington. Lions having a backup quarterback, that they may be able to go in there and sneak out with a win, even though we know winning on the road in the NFL is a hard thing to do. My first major point of the game overall that I would like to make is that Dwayne Haskins, his numbers, they weren't that great. He's kind of, inaccurate with the ball, but his wide receivers, I don't know if anything was on their hands or these guys are just some amazing concentration, but these guys were coming up with some catches that it's just like, they're like almost Madden-esque that you would see like on a highlight of Madden that you would stop the game and then go back and replay it just to show it. Because their wide receivers and McLaurin and stuff, they were just making some amazing catches just to kind of make up for the bad passes that Haskins was having. That was like my biggest take from the game. I mean, there was points where guys were wide open and Haskins was overthrowing it, underthrowing it, bad passes, misreads, but there were some he was just like threading the needle, and some where guys were jumping, making just these great catches, like one-handed catches, and it just, scratching my head, like how, what's on these guys' gloves, even watching the replay. I remember thinking that watching the game originally, but watching the replay, I thought the same thing. But, starting into the game, let's see, the Lions here, Driscoll, once again, he's one of those quarterbacks, he has pretty good mobility, an okay arm, but still you could tell he's one of those, quarterbacks, not too much, time, under his belt in the league. So, he did have a nice drive early on. Washington did go down, did have a 3-0 lead. But Driscoll, had a nice drive. Washington was able to get some pressure on him at points, but Driscoll with his feet was able to scamper out, make some things happen, get some first downs on some runs here and there. And with 11 minutes in the second quarter, the game was 3-3. This is once again one of those games that wasn't at this point, very exciting. You could tell that the offenses were struggling with who was, under center. But right after that, I remember this. We were talking about the game. I had went to the kitchen, used the bathroom really quick on the kickoff, and Washington, a man named Sims, returned the kickoff. There was some bad coverage on that. It looked like a few guys left their lanes. Not for sure what happened there. I don't think it was blocked perfectly, but it was one of the things. Sims, went up the middle, missed a couple guys, broke to the top, and just ran down the sideline, and nobody was going to catch that guy. And watching the highlight again, it's just one of those things where there's always talking that they're looking to take the kickoff out of the game, or maybe changing it to the way the XFL does it, but that was one of those things. I mean, it's an exciting play, and a win against the Lions. But you just have to have better coverage than that. And I know last year at points, the Lions special teams did have some, issues. That's why their coach was let go. But still, I mean, a kickoff return, it doesn't happen a whole lot in the NFL anymore. There's an awful lot of touchbacks, but Simmons was able to take that one to the house to give the Redskins a 10-3 lead at that point. Then once again, it was nice to see, I know we mentioned this before, even with the new quarterbacks after Stafford went down, that the offensive playbook did not change. They still tried to go down the field some when they could. There was right after that, Driscoll once again tried to make a play downfield, threw into coverage, and he was picked off at that point. But the Lions defense did come up, and they held, forcing Washington to punt. After that, Lions had decent field position. I can't remember exactly where, but the next play there was a fumble by the Lions and was recovered by Washington. So 2 plays in a row, the Lions had turnovers. And Derek's right. Usually at this point, I'm looking for the sky to fall, and 2 plays back to back, one bad pick, and then another one just putting the ball on the ground in a pile of people. Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I hang my head. I'm starting to think, oh gosh, same old Lions, but the defense bowed its back, it stiffened, held them to a field goal, so the Lions at this point were only down 13-3. There was other points in the game, before the halftime. Driscoll looked good at points when people said, okay, he might be a decent backup. There's no way I'd look to trade Matt Stafford to have him as the starting quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. But then there was points once you can tell he was, just a young quarterback without a lot of time. There was also points in this game where the offensive line, did not help him. I know Washington dialed up some unique blitzes, and it always seems like when the Lions play Washington, Ryan Kerrigan seems to have a big game against them. There's points where he had a sack or two, had some more pressures, and the offensive line did look confused at points, and it just wasn't, it wasn't a great day for the Lions offensive line, especially with Kerryon out. Bo Scarborough ran the ball. He did have some really nice runs in this game. Some up the middle, and he looked like one of those guys that make the line, make us as fans think he could be the power running back that the Lions are looking for, but right before the halftime, the Lions, do drive down, and they make it, within the red zone. But then the offensive drive stalls, and they settle for a field goal. So at halftime in this game, it's 13-6. And at this point, I'm thinking to myself, okay, for as bad as the Lions have played, and the Redskins have, rookie quarterback under there, I figured Matt Patricia may be able to dial up some changes, make some adjustments, and this team, would be able to pull it out in the end, even with Driscoll at QB. So once again, there in the third quarter, the Lions, get the ball, and Driscoll, once again, it's one of those things that kind of showed some flashes, had a few nice passes, drove the team down the field, and threw a touchdown. Logan Thomas with roughly 10 minutes left in the third quarter. And Logan Thomas, ran a nice flag route on that, up the field, and then broke for the back flag, and Driscoll, put it over the top, and a nice pass and catch by the team to tie the game up. And once again, a couple things happened, and Derek, this is for you. Jared Davis had a nice sack, blitz right up the middle. Dwayne Haskins had nowhere to go. It's one of those things where I know we talk about it, but got to give the guy his due. Jared Davis, when he can shoot from the hip that way and just point and shoot and go and make the tackle, that's one thing that he does excel at. So Jared Davis, nice sack there in the third quarter. Lions get the ball back, drive back down, and they once again, the drive stalls, and they settle for a field goal, and it's 16-13 at that point. And then we go into the fourth quarter, and I'm not for sure what really happened there. I don't know if the Lions, there was points where it seemed the Lions bring a little pressure, but then once again, they kind of did what we saw later in the year. They didn't get nearly as much pressure as they had at other points in the game. Dwayne Haskins seemed to settle in a little bit more. His wide receivers once again made a few more of those catches that, make us wonder what was on their gloves, what special, scientific substance was on their gloves to give these guys the opportunity to catch everything thrown in their way. But the Redskins put a couple drives together. The Lions didn't get too much pressure on those on the last drives. They went down at one point, kicked a field goal, and then the Lions got the ball back. And then I realized the Lions were trying to drive down the field late in the game to try to get into scoring position to pull the game out. But once again, Driscoll threw another bad interception. Over the middle, guy was well covered. Washington just stepped right in front of the pass, just jumped the route and threw right in the hands, and got the interception there. Couple more plays. One of the plays, once again, that brought to my mind, I know me and Derek not laughed, but kind of debated. It's like, well, how come nobody was guarding Adrian Peterson out of the backfield? I remember Derek saying, like, what had Adrian Peterson done all day to put somebody on him? Which I can see his point on that, but still, he's on the field. He's a pass-eligible, wide receiver. Somebody can catch the ball, and still he was out in the flat, and he was able to catch the ball, make a man miss, scamper up the sideline for a big gain to help them get back into field goal range. And then once again, late in the game, the Redskins were able to kind of salt it away. They got the field goal, take a 19-16 lead. And then late in the game, there was another interception, end of the game. But where was Dwayne Haskins? He wasn't there under center to take the final kneel down. He was too busy, taking selfies with the crowd. I don't know if that's immaturity. I mean, happy he got his first win. I understand that, but gosh, dude, I mean, that's kind of one of the most classless things I've seen out of any pro. Is just like, I'm going to go take selfies with the fans after my first win while the game is still happening. It's like, I mean, I guess it's one of those things. I mean, it may sound like sour grapes, and people are like, you don't want them to do it, win the game, but still, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that while the clock is still running, go over to the sideline to take selfies with the guy. But maybe that's one of the things that shows his immaturity, maybe one of the things that Ron Rivera doesn't like, and maybe why he's thinking about taking Tua Tagovailoa at the number 2 pick. But anyways, it's one of those tough, heartbreaking games that we often talk about last year, another, one-score game where the Lions just, aren't able to hold on in the end. There was points where they played well. There was points that, the defense, did not get enough pressure. Got wide receivers were wide open, but like I said, the wide receivers in this game really made some catches that were, I mean, you just have to, give them credit. They were just amazing catches, but that's just a tough loss right there for the Lions at this point in the season. But then after that, we know it's a short week. It's a short, plane ride back from Washington, D.C. to Detroit, and the Lions are going to have to play on Thanksgiving. And I know once again it's a hard luck season, and a lot of America, is not, happy to see the Lions when they're having a bad, year on Thanksgiving. But still, it's our game. Leave us alone. We're the ones that started it. We're not going to lose it. Sorry we've had some bad years, and we haven't been able to watch all all-star teams, and the Dallas Cowboys, they play at 4:30, so you can sit around and watch those guys, and we all know they'll get the calls on Thanksgiving. But the Lions are here. It's our game, and I was more than happy to after while eating, pony up and watch this game as well. I love Thanksgiving. Always have great memories of this game as a kid. Even now, I still love to watch it, even with the times that the hard luck years the Lions have had. So let's get into this game. Once again, the Bears quarterback Mitch. It'll always be Mitch. He comes down, Bears get the opening kickoff. Cordell Patterson takes it out, gets a nice return. Patterson's one of the most dangerous return men in the game. We all know that. He's one of those guys, it seems like no matter what, you always want the guy to return it. It always seems like he's going to get it past the 25 no matter what, or he has a major chance of breaking it. So, once again, the kickoff coverage on it, not that great for the Lions. So, Mitch, he's able to drive the Bears down the field on the opening drive. Lions didn't have too much pressure on him, and they go up on 7-0 early in the game. And at this point, I'm just like, gosh, guys, it's gonna be a long game. I realize Driscoll got hurt the last game, and Blau is now the quarterback. It's the first time we've all seen him. Lions traded for Blau at the end of the preseason, so we're all kind of interested to see what this guy can do. So once again, Blau's out there, and Darrell Bevell keeps the playbook the same, no matter who's in there at quarterback. Comes out there, and Blau just throws a great deep ball. Kenny Golladay, double move, and he's by the defense. Blau just puts it out there, and Kenny runs underneath it. Scampers in for the 78-yard touchdown. It's just one of those things. I'm like, whoa, it really opened my eyes right there. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be great. It's going to be one of those games we throw caution to the wind. We're going to keep, playing hard, and once again, won't change the playbook just because we're down to our third string quarterback. From that point on, in the first half, Blau, looked, really, really good. It seemed like the Bears were just kind of like sitting back, hoping at this point that, they would allow him to make mistakes, either with their coverage or, just maybe not reading the right defense, maybe tricking him. But, you have to admit, Blau looked good early. He had, some nice passes to Kenny Golladay, who had a big game, this day, well over 100 yards receiving on like 4 or 5 catches. Marvin Jones, his stats weren't as, prolific as Kenny Galladay's this game, but once again, he had some nice catches. He seemed to get open as well, early on, Lions get the ball back after holding the Bears to the punt. Blau drives him down again, finds just the aforementioned, Marvin Jones in the end zone for a touchdown. Lions are up 14-7 at this point, looking really good, on Thanksgiving. We realize at this point as fans that there's, more losses, you get a better draft pick, but it's always nice to see them win on Thanksgiving, so I was pretty happy. Offense was looking good. The defense, had settled in after, that early drive by Mitch and the Bears, and Lions were up 14-7 at this point. And then right after that, Lions go kick off, and it's like that onside kick that wasn't an onside kick. Not for sure if somebody slipped, stumbled, a misplant, but that ball, shot right at the Bears front line on the kick return team, bounced off them, and the Lions recover. So that's one of those things that afterwards they were like, oh no, that was just a miss hit, we didn't plan it. But I can't understand why more teams don't do that early on or at some point in the game. It's just teams aren't looking for it. Yeah, all coaches say look for it, keep in mind, watch it, but I don't think they really believe that they're actually going to onside kick at that point. So, the Lions jumped on the ball. They took advantage of the Bears' first line, just turning to look to block, return on the block, and they got the ball. They got the ball right there, but Lions weren't able to do anything with it. They punted away, but then once again the Lions defense held up again. Blau once again had another nice deep ball to Kenny Boy at about 5.5 in the second quarter to move the ball down there. And at that point it looked like the drive was about to stall out, but then the Bears got called for roughing the passer, and it continued with the drive. And it might be one of those things where Bears fans will be like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I don't know if you want to call that roughing the passer. It was. That was the new NFL roughing the passer, and I guess you really can't complain about it. Bears fan, sorry. I know I often complain like those calls go against the Lions, but they got one here. So once again, I'll take it. I'm always more than willing to take those calls for the Lions. Lions had the ball for a couple more minutes, but once again the drive stalls, and they go up 17-7. Then the Bears, like right before halftime, they're able to, I don't know if they went into like some sort of soft prevent defense, the Lions did, but the Bears moved the ball down the field, got within field goal range, and took some of the momentum away from the Lions by kicking a field goal and only being down 17-10 at the half. The third quarter, at this point, Lions are up 17-10. I'm happy, half a game, Blau's looking good. And going into the second half, the defense is playing pretty well. Even though Mitch is having some time to throw the ball and he's finding his receivers, but still, we're up at half. I'm good with that. Second half rolls around, Lions get the ball, they punt it away, Bears get the ball back, and at about the 10.5 minute mark, my boy, Big Play Slay, comes up with a nice interception, to stall the Bears drive. And I'm always one of those things. I think Slay only had 2 or 3 picks last year. Can't remember right off the top of my head, but a lot of teams didn't throw his way. So him getting the pick, that amped up the crowd, made me hyped up. I'm like, great, we got the ball back, and we can go down and score, and that's what I'm hoping for. But at that point, the Bears had made some adjustments. I don't know if they did some more, disguise the coverages a little better. They really increased the pressure in the second half as well. I thought they brought some more blitzes against Blau, but he didn't look nearly as comfortable in the second half as he did in the first half. Once again, rookie quarterback, it's come to be expected. It just seemed like, the clock struck midnight, and, the pumpkin went back to, the carriage went back to the pumpkin, and Cinderella returned back to, being a housemaid. And, Blau just did not look that comfortable in the second half. So, there was points in this game, I'm like, come on, I'm just like, just hold on. Let's just get the W. Just, defense is playing good. Just hold on. Don't make any mistakes. Offense, just, keep the ball. Just, try to do something. Let's get the run game going just to kind of burn the clock. But, one of those things where the Lions had drive, they punted it away. Then the Bears, once again, I don't know, Mitch has some elixir against the Lions where he just becomes, Joe Montana, and he's just able to hit all these passes, and he drives the ball down the field, and he hits Horsted, the tight end. I know you're all saying who. The same Horsted who had a touchdown against for the Bears a few weeks before in Chicago. Or he had a, I can't remember. He just had a nice game in that game too. But, like Horsted, I can understand why the Lions aren't guarding this guy. Once again, he is a pass-eligible wide receiver, so I'm not quite for sure he's tight end, and we all know the Lions seem to struggle with covering the tight end. But I know when Horsted scored, I was just like, gosh, man, this just can't happen, So, but at this point, they scored. It's 17-17, and then the Lions, something happens. Blau, he gets a little bit of his confidence back, and he puts a really nice drive together. And it gets down. They're in the red zone. They're close. I mean, I believe they're within the 10. It's 3rd and 1, and McKissic's at running back, and and I know there's probably certain offensive sets for certain guys, and it's 1 yard, and it didn't seem to be like one of those you hear the term like, oh, that's a short one or a long 1 yard, almost 2 yards. No, it seemed to be just around maybe 1 yard, something like that. And McKissic's in there, and he gets the ball, and he has the edge. And we realize McKissic's fast, but he tried to even go farther to the outside. If he cuts it up right then and there, he gets the 1 yard. That's all we're looking for. I mean, he's looking for the home run play, just scoring the touchdown, but cut it up. Just get the 1 yard, and you'll be fine. That's what you needed right there. No, instead he tries to bounce it outside, and Fuller comes up from the corner spot, dives in, makes a shoestring tackle, and McKissic goes down short of the first down marker. Now, once again, at this point, I believe this is going to be like, at this point where he was tackled, it becomes like maybe a really long one for 4th and 1 or closer to 4th and 2, and the Lions settle for the field goal. And Lions go up 20-17, so it's okay. They got the points here. I realize the Bears just went down and scored, but still, the Lions defense hasn't been playing that bad today. At this point, the Lions defense does hold, and the Bears are forced to punt. The Lions get the ball back. And Scarborough, at this point, has a big run down the sideline. Breaks the outside, and he rips off a nice, like it was like a 15-20 yard run. And once again, there's a flag on the play. Kenny Galladay, for such a great day, he had a wide receiver catching the ball. And, he had that block in the back, and it was pretty obvious. I mean, I know people can say, well, it was chintzy. No, watching the replay, it's one of those obvious, he hits the guy in the numbers. One of those things, coaches tell you, if you see his numbers, don't hit him in the back. Just, kind of let it go. Just kind of stand there as a wall and, let the running back go around you guys. But the McKissic play and the Galladay play, I think, were the two biggest, plays of this game. And not getting the first down, keeping the drive going, and maybe getting a touchdown on it, and have to settle for a field goal, and then the block in the back, sending it back, forcing the Lions, to end up punting from the drive, giving the ball back to the Bears. The Lions at that point, once again, I don't know what it is. Mitch, finds life. I'm going to beat the Lions because I'm Mitch Trubisky. I'm terrible against every other team, but for some odd reason, I show up against the Lions. He's able to, feed these passes in there, to the wide receiver Miller on the Bears. The worst part was, Miller was running routes against Justin Coleman, the big signing that the Lions had in the offseason. We all know that. And one of the catches down the sideline to put it near the end zone, I don't know. Coleman had decent position, but I guess you got to hand it to Mitch at that point. He just made a great catch. Miller made a great throw. Miller made a nice catch to put it, within the 10-yard line. And at that point, the Bears go in for the score to go up 24-20. Now, the Lions do get the ball back late in the game, and maybe looking for Blau to do some magic. But at one point, it's like 3rd down, and Blau gets sacked, and it's gonna, it's like 2nd down, he gets sacked, and it's like 3rd and 22. It's pretty much 3rd and a mile. And at this point, he just throws the ball up for grabs, down the field, hoping to get a first down, and it's a pick. Bears pick it off, and that pretty much ends the game right there. A tough luck loss, on Thanksgiving, right after a tough luck loss on the road, in Washington. So, in a short week, the Lions lost 2 tough games, to 2 teams that were very beatable, even with what the Lions had on the field, going down 24-20. So just a rough week. Once again, it was nice to see family and friends on Thanksgiving, and but still, tough luck loss, for the Lions, going into the long break. So, but still, this kind of showed where the lines were at. They did have some pieces here and there. I would still, like, for this year, I wouldn't want to put my eggs in the basket of the Driscoll or Blau as the backup quarterback for these guys. I know at points last year, I was just like, maybe give them some snaps, see a little more. But I think throughout the year, as it wore on, especially with Blau, we saw that once teams saw a little more tape on him, they were able to figure him out, confuse him more, and he didn't look nearly as good as he did from the start. So that happens a lot. It's the NFL. There's a lot, that's where the best coaches are. So at this point, it's a hard luck season, and right now the Lions are just playing for pride. The infamous, playing for pride term that everybody uses, and we're all like, saying, why don't we just lose out? We get the best draft pick we can. So that's pretty much this week, covering these two games. I know next week me and Derek will be back. Once again, if you guys want to hit me up on Twitter, feel free to give me a shot at Grifka. That's GRIFKADKC. Or call in on the line or text at 989-272-3484. Once again, that line is 989-272-3484. And I know it's been nice talking to you guys this week. Sorry, once again, I didn't have any bells for you guys this week. And once again, I know I like the shameless plugs of hit me online, at Twitter. Once again, that's at GrifkaDKC, or please hit up Derek Oakery. That's at Derek Oakery. That's DEREKOKRIE. Both of us love to hear from you guys, talk to you guys. Tell us what you want us to talk about. If you have any questions for us that would like us to answer on the show, give us a good question. We'll answer it here for you. And that's all I really have. So once again, just to let you guys know, is there anything else that I have for you guys this week? Nope. So that's all I got. Once again, go Lions, everybody. Drink it in. Have a good weekend. Bye.